If you knew these 8 different ways that you could use to find contractors for your property rehabs, how much would that help you? Could you find the most qualified? Get the best value? How about a fair price? Or how about not getting screwed from a fly-by-night contractor, like losing out on your deposit when they don't show up? Well, in today's episode, I'm going to be going over the 8 ways that I use to find contractors, not only for my property rehabs, but for my construction management business. So if you want to know what those 8 ways are, make sure you stick around. Let's go. Welcome to episode number 3 of the Real Estate Rehabbers podcast. I am your host, Emanuele, a.k.a. the Real Estate Rehabber, and I'm glad that you are with me here today. I got an exciting episode for you. In today's episode, I'm going to be going over the 8 ways that I use to find contractors. Now, you're probably thinking, why 8 ways? Why would I not just ask for a referral? That's the quickest and easiest, right? Well, if you just rely solely on referrals, and I'm going to do a separate podcast just on why I hate referrals, but by using these 8 different sources, you are essentially casting an extremely wide net. And if you picture a fisherman, the bigger the net, the more fish you can catch. Well, it's the same thing when it comes to contractors. The bigger the net you cast, the more contractors you're going to find, the higher the likelihood that you're going to find contractors who are qualified to work on your specific project. If you just are looking at a couple of different contractors, you're limiting the pool of potential candidates, and you could be missing out on finding a really good contractor, not only for this project, but to build a relationship with and continue going forward on future projects. So don't limit yourself to just one of these ways that I'm going to go through in today's episode. Try using them all and see what a difference it makes when it comes to finding qualified and professional, trustworthy contractors for your next project. All right, so let's go with number 1, family, friends, and associations, like people in the REI space. This is the number 1 way that I see real estate investors using to find contractors for their projects. It is definitely the low-hanging fruit of all of the ways that I'm going to be covering here today. So it makes sense to take that first step and just ask people who have recently completed projects, ideally similar to yours, who they used. Were they good? What did you like about them? What didn't you like about them? Would you recommend them? Because they've already worked with said contractor, you'll have a pretty good idea of what that contractor's capabilities are. These are all part of what I call pre-qualification questions, but by going to referrals, you're leveraging their experience to make your life easier when it comes to finding potential contractors for your project. So definitely take advantage of referrals from family, friends, and your network. Number 2 is to utilize your power team. And if you haven't listened to episode number 2 of the Real Estate Rehabbers podcast, I go in depth into my top 5 must-have power team members. There are certainly more power team members that you'll need, but that's the top 5 that I would recommend to get started with. Now, your power team members are specialists in their field. Just to do a quick recap of who those 5 power team members are, I have property managers, realtors, mortgage brokers, contractors, and coaches and mentors on my top 5 list. You can use all of these power team members for finding contractors because if they are investor focused, like I mentioned in episode 2, and that's why you're working with them, because they know what your needs are as a real estate investor, they've probably completed one or several property rehabs themselves. And if they haven't, they're probably working with other real estate investors or have other experienced real estate investors in their circle who they've discussed contractors with and projects with. You can use that connection. With the power team members being in your circle, you now have access to their circles as well. So who do they know that they can connect you with as a warm lead for you to discuss and ask about contractors? Who would they recommend? The same questions that you would ask family, friends, people in the REI community. What type of work did they do for you? Were they qualified? Were they professional? Were they clean? Did they finish on time? Were they organized? Did they come in on budget? Were there any hiccups or a breakdown in communication? So I separate power team members from number one because you'll have more trust in the information that they're giving you rather than, say, someone in the REI community that you asked on Facebook. Number three on my list is online sources. Online sources includes anything that you can find on the internet. So number one of my online resources is Google and Google Maps. You can use this to find contractors that are near to your locale or the city or town that you're investing in. So if you go to Google or Google Maps and type in the search bar, plumbing contractors near me, or HVAC, heating, ventilation, and cooling contractors near me, or general contractors near me, renovators near me, carpenters near me, you get the point. You'll be quickly greeted with a list of contractors who you can pull up information on, whether that is their brick and mortar office address, if they have one, their website, their phone number, reviews by other people, photos of their work. And these are all clues as to whether or not they're a trustworthy contractor because they have an online presence, or if you should skip past them. Another online resource is websites. Not only the contractors' websites, but there are websites with databases of contractors and consumer reviews, like the Better Business Bureau, Yellow Pages, 411, Houzz, Houzz, Trusted Pros, Home Advisor, Renomark. I mean, the list keeps going on, and these websites just seem to keep growing. And on there, you'll find information about contractors. Again, it's similar to doing a Google search, and you can pull up a directory and you can see consumer reviews. Are there good reviews? Are there bad reviews? If there's bad reviews, have the contractors responded to them in any way? What did their response look like? These are all little clues that you can look at to find out if the contractor is worth contacting. Next for online sources is social media. So social media platforms like Facebook, obviously, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, you can call a social media platform as well, although it's been around for decades now and it's not really perceived as a social media platform, but more and more people and influencers are putting out content on it, and it is transitioning from a professional business networking site to more of a social media platform that you and I would be familiar with, like Facebook. So any contractor in the business should be on social media. My company's on social media. We post regular updates on our progress of our projects. But really, that is the new way for contractors to advertise themselves and their work, to provide value for potential customers, to build up a rapport and some trust. They're trying to build credibility and authority in their specific trade so that you and other potential customers feel comfortable in interacting with them. It's also a little less intimidating to send a direct message to someone on social media than it is to pick up the phone and call and talk to them if that's not your ideal style of communication, especially in a first interaction. So social media gives you that power as well to send a direct message to a contractor to get some more information without having to discuss anything over the phone. And that might be up your alley, it might not be. It just depends. But an online presence lets you see what kind of content they're putting out, how are they engaging with their community in posts and comments, and how much value they are providing them overall. So definitely use social media as a tool, and similar to these other websites and Google, each of these social media platforms has a search function where you can look up contractors near you and find out the who's who in your area and go from there. So number 3 is online sources. And that's a big one, but definitely take advantage of it because all of that information is out there on the internet, readily available. for you to access. Hey, real quick, I just want to interrupt the show to let you know that it's sponsored by me and my 2 books. One covers the top 10 mistakes that real estate investors make when it comes to property rehabbing and how to avoid them. And the other is a step-by-step project management system of processes to help you in planning and managing your property rehabs. I've written both using my decade of experience in commercial and residential construction, and I highly recommend that you go and check them out. They are now available in Kindle and paperback version on Amazon. I'm going to leave links to both below in the description. All right, enough of that. Let's get back to the show. Number 4 is builder and construction associations. I would also throw in organizations like the BNI and the Small Business Chamber of Commerce in your town or city, or the one that you're investing in, as another way that you can go about finding contractors. And you can pull up this information again through Google, which is so convenient, and just search for builder associations near me, construction associations near me, and you're very likely to find one if it's a larger city in the city or covering a specific geographic region. So it could include a county or several towns and cities. And when you go to this website, the members of those organizations are not only contractors, but also other industry professionals. Could be project managers, construction managers, engineers, or other consultants, architects, designers. And these members pay a monthly or yearly fee to be a part of that organization. And the majority of these websites should have a members directory that you can pull up and search for members through the filter function specifically to narrow it down to whatever it is that you're looking for. So if you're looking for an engineer, you can tick a filter box and it'll pull up all of the engineers that are part of that organization. Same thing with home builders. If you're looking specifically for a home builder, you can find typically a filter and check that box and search for home builders. Or if it's plumbing contractors or HVAC contractors or electricians and so on and so on, it just makes it easier to narrow down the list to whatever it is that you're specifically looking for. Now, the majority of smaller contractors are not going to pony up the membership fee to be a part of these organizations. So if you have a larger project that you're working on or a development project that you're working on, this would be the place I recommend that you go to find more qualified, bigger contractors that have the structure and the size to be able to tackle larger projects. You don't want to use a contractor that only does emergency calls if you have a plumbing leak to do a townhouse complex, for example, or a condo building, right? You want a contractor that's larger, that has the staff of tradesmen to be able to tackle the project. So that is the purpose of builder and construction associations. It's definitely helped me find contractors, and it could be a valuable resource to you too. So I highly recommend it. That is number 4. Number 5 is one that I've used and found to work very well in smaller towns and cities, and that is building material suppliers or building renovation suppliers. If you go to Google and search building renovation suppliers near me, or building renovation suppliers near me, building material suppliers near me, or wholesalers near me, electrical wholesalers, plumbing wholesalers, lumber suppliers, drywall suppliers, all of these businesses have a database of contractors because these contractors set up contractor accounts, either cash or credit accounts, and they make it onto their list of recommended trades, because when you open a contractor account, you need to provide your business information, address, contact, whether that's phone and email, and they become part of this database. So in smaller towns and cities, this works especially well because there's less contractors to choose from. And in a lot of cases, these contractors don't have an online presence. You can utilize the lists that these building supply stores have put together as one way to accumulate a Rolodex of contractors that you can then qualify and potentially hire for your project. So this is a good route to take if you're struggling to find contractors in an area online. Highly recommend it. It's worked well for me in the past. So definitely check it out. Number 6 is other contractors. So don't stop at just contacting a contractor that someone referred to you or that you found from an online source or through the building suppliers. When you're on the phone with a contractor and you're asking them about their qualifications, you can always end the call by saying, oh, by the way, now that you know a little bit about my project, I'm also looking for insert specific contractor here, like a plumber, like an electrician, like a carpenter, drywaller, a taper, and say, do you know anyone in town that you would recommend? And that is another way to really accelerate building the list of potential contractors that you could hire for your next property rehab. The worst they're going to say is, no, I don't really know anybody. But you can expect that most of these contractors have cross paths at some point with a lot of other contractors in town, right? Think about this. If a carpenter or a plumber or whatever is working on a specific job site, they've at some point cross paths with the other trades who are working on that job site. And they'll know who's good and who's not based on a number of factors, but just seeing them actually perform the work and interacting with them. And especially when it comes to if it's subs that are working for a general contractor, who is organized, who's paying on time, who's not paying them. And so they know the who's who in town, who to stay away from, who does good work. They talk. So definitely use this as a way to build up your list of potential contractors for your property rehabs. Number 7 is a little bit sneaky. It kind of plays off of finding trades through contractors, and that is to talk to the tradesmen that are actually working on site, because in some cases, they are being subcontracted to work through that contractor. So in my case, for my construction management business, this has happened on a couple of occasions where I've hired a more I've hired a larger contractor or subcontractor with a presence across the province of Ontario where I live. And this larger contractor is actually subbing out the work that's being completed on site to smaller guys who are fulfilling the supply and installation. And guess what? They're putting a markup of, 20 to 50% on it. If you bypass them as the middleman, you can save quite a bit on your project. And through several trades, that starts to add up and compound, which could lead to some substantial savings, especially if you're self-managing your property rehab. Now, this takes a little bit of tact and rapport building with the contractor that's working on site to find out. But some of these giveaways, if they're not pulling up in a marked vehicle of that larger contractor, then that's kind of a giveaway that they might be a sub. This has worked really well for me in the past. It's a little bit sneaky. It does require a little bit of tact, like I said, but it's definitely another way that you can use to find contractors and qualified contractors and save yourself money in the process. So it's one to definitely keep on your radar and potentially pull out that card in the future. Now, number 8 is the final one, and I like to refer to this one as driving for contractors. If you're a real estate investor and you've been around for a while and watch podcasts and participated in networking events and courses and things like that, you've probably heard the term driving for dollars. And driving for dollars is essentially going around in neighborhoods and looking for vacant and distressed properties. So properties that have overgrown yards, boarded up, no eaves troughs or downspouts, just dingy, uncared for properties that you could potentially pull up information on find out who the owner is and have a conversation, get the property off market and save yourself a boatload, add value to that property, and then either keep it, building up equity, or sell it for financial gain through a flip. Driving for contractors is very much the same. Contractors are everywhere. And if you use a part of the brain called a reticular activating system, which is essentially a filter of information. So we get inputs every second from all kinds of different sources through our eyes and ears specifically, but also through our nose and other senses. And the job of the reticular activating system is to filter the information that's most important to you. So let me give you an example of the reticular activating system in action. If you've ever bought a car and you've done research on that car before, and you're not an impulse shopper, especially on something that is tens of thousands of dollars potentially, you probably noticed that this car you're interested in has started to pop up everywhere. You're seeing it everywhere, at every light, at every stop sign, at every parking lot. This car is all of a sudden, it's everywhere. And that's because you've highlighted it as something important to you. So your brain's reticular activating system is filtering through all of those other cars, and now you're able to spot one that you've highlighted as important. This works very much the same when it comes to driving for contractors, because there is no shortage of contractors. If you start paying attention, you're going to see branded work vehicles. You're going to see yard signs, billboards, advertisements on buses and bus stops, in parking lots, and not just building supply or big box store parking lots, but just, when you go grocery shopping, when you go to the gym, it's going to hit you in the face that contractors are everywhere. And when you see these, take a picture, right? Save it for later, then contact the contractor. Do a little bit more research online through some of the other ways that I mentioned. Pull up more information on social media, on Google, and do a little bit more digging to see if it makes sense to contact that contractor for your property rehabs. The more you pay attention, the more contractors you'll spot, the more potential candidates that you'll have for your project. So there you have it. There are my 8 different ways for you to find contractors for your next future property rehabs. Just to recap, number 1, you have family, friends, and your REI network. Number 2, you have power team members. Number 3, you have online sources, Google, websites, social media. You have number 4, builder and construction associations, also adding networks like the BNI and Small Business Chamber of Commerce in your town or city as part of that. Number 5, building material suppliers. Very effective way to build up a trades list and get recommendations in smaller towns. Number 6, other contractors. Highly effective way to build up a list of contractors by using contractors who have crossed paths with others in their industry at some point and know who's who in town, who to stay away from, who to work with, who does good work, who does bad work, who pays, who doesn't pay. Number 7, and this one's a little sneaky, but instead of other contractors, you are looking for the subcontractors of larger contractors. Who are they using? Because they're hiring them and they're putting their markup on it, charging it to their customers. If you can bypass the middleman and work directly with that smaller guy, building up a rapport with them first, that could benefit you in the long run, especially if you're not just doing a one-off project, but you're doing multiple projects or have plans to do multiple projects in the future. This is someone that you can continue to use. And number 8 is driving for contractors. As I mentioned, contractors are everywhere, and this is a very effective way for you to source contractors. Definitely use it. Just like driving for dollars. If you're driving for contractors, eventually you're going to find a contractor that does good work, that's very communicative with you, very organized, very professional, trustworthy, and reliable, someone that you continue to use, again, on not only this project that you have planned, but future projects. That is a recap of all 8 ways that I use to find contractors for my property rehabs and for my construction management business. It served me very well. All 8 different ways of finding contractors will allow you to amass a bigger list of contractors that you can then screen and find the cream of the crop for you to hire for your property rehab. Of course, step 1 is finding contractors, but step 2 is qualifying contractors. And I go through a couple of different processes in order to do that, which I will share in future podcasts, but pre-qualification and qualification are two different steps, two different layers. You can think of them like a job interview that I use to find and hire potential contractors. So enough of that. That's it for today's episode. Leave a comment below if you found that helpful. Give this video a like and make sure you subscribe or follow this podcast for future property rehabbing tips that will help you plan and manage your projects. I'm your host, Emanuele. That's it for today's episode. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you on the next one.